What's the one thing that you think has the greatest influence over us when we're trying to take that one small step close to God? It's probably different from what you think, because here's the answer, at least in my own experience. It's actually trying to do too much too fast and struggling with our expectations. Father Mark here. Welcome back to Conversation. As this week we have really just looked deep inside our hearts and asking ourselves, what would it take to take one step closer to God? That's where we were Monday, right? We said we have to let go of where we aren't. Yesterday, I just encouraged us as we were in conversation to, as we are just trying to be who we are, right? Learn from your history. That's what helped you. But if we're going to continue the process, we have to, I think, take small steps rather than expecting ourselves to take big steps. Let me give you a concrete example. I remember many years ago, 25 years ago to be exact, when I was first entering into the seminary. I had a prayer life because I was trying to follow the Lord, and that's what led me to the seminary. But I wasn't praying for more than, I guess, maybe about 10, 15 minutes a day. I would, at that time in my life, I would leave my lunch break early, and I would find a church or maybe just a quiet spot in the office or maybe somewhere outside, and I would just kind of talk to God, maybe read the daily readings at Mass. But my prayer life at that point was about 15 minutes every day in the middle of the day. Got to the seminary, and one of the first things they said is that a good seminarian prays a holy hour every day. A good seminarian prays 60 minutes every day. Well, I wanted to be a good seminarian. In fact, I wanted to be the best seminarian. And so I immediately started to pray for an hour every day. And guess what happened? Nothing. I struggled a lot because I didn't know how to pray for an hour a day, and no one was there to teach me. And all I was trying to do was compete with other guys. And what mounted every day was distraction, dryness, frustration, and unmet expectations of what I was supposed to be doing, rather than just taking some small steps, which is the only thing that God ever expected. I had the courage eventually to take my heart and my experience to my spiritual director, and I admitted to him what was happening, and he asked a really good question. Well, tell me about your prayer life before you came to the seminary. And I admitted to him that if I was praying, I was probably praying for about 10 to 15 minutes every day. And so he said, all right, let me give you some homework. Go back to just doing that. And so I didn't try to pray for 60 minutes. I just tried to pray for 10 to 15. Did that for a month, and he says, okay, today we're going to see if we can go to 20 minutes. And what happened was something that was remarkably easy, remarkably natural, and made a remarkable impact in my experience of God. I eventually was able to get up to 60, and many days that was full of distraction, just like it was earlier. But many of those days it was actually filled with more communication and more hearing from God. But I would have never gotten to 60 if I would have not tried to first get from 15 to 16. In other words, in their spiritual life, the big steps are rarely taken one at a time. The big steps are usually consisting of the little steps that eventually build into something that's a habit, that's sustainable, that becomes a new way of life. For many of us, if you are going to take that next step from the Lord, it's not going to be God that we're fighting. It's going to be us and our expectations. That's what we're going to be fighting for, most of us, right? And if we can let go of the expectations, which is what we tried to talk about yesterday, and just be who you are, and then try to take some very practical, small, little steps, then I think we're going to be much more successful in taking that step closer to God, right? It's about the little things that we can do, the baby steps, the one day at a time. So, for example, if you're praying for 5 minutes a day, then don't try to pray for 60 tomorrow. Can you go from 5 to 7? Can you go from 5 to 10? If you're not praying at all right now, that's okay. Can you carve out 5 to 10 minutes every day and just carve out some silence and start to take some small steps? And we'll give you some practical coaching over the next couple of days. But sometimes it's just being honest with how long you're going to pray before we actually start talking about what you're going to do when you're praying. Taking small steps, it helps us to feel more confident. Taking small steps, it helps us to be a lot more realistic. And when we are able to build up some small victories, we feel more confident. rather than building up big losses, which discourages us, which erodes our confidence and helps us to feel almost defeated as we're trying to do something that's really, really important to us. How are you doing in your daily experience of prayer? And what would be the most natural small step forward, right? To increase by 5 to 10%, whatever you're doing. Or if you just need to start from scratch, then let's just do that. Can you take 10 minutes every day? As we continue to have conversation for the rest of this week, let me tell you where we're going. We're going to talk about tomorrow, when is the best time for us to pray? And then on Friday, we're going to talk about being prepared as we enter into prayer. And then as our conversation continues to unfold, we'll give you some practical things that we can do. Looking forward to being with you. Take some small steps. Let the Lord love you. And until our conversation unfolds tomorrow, God bless you.